Speaking of Valentine's Day, let's get a little romance going. Oh wait, no, not that guy. Koei was a Japanese video game developer known for its historical pseudo-simulation games including Liberty or Death for the Super Nintendo, and Nobunaga's Ambition, Genghis Khan, and Bandit Kings of Ancient China for the NES, just to name a few. They also developed Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is of the historical pseudo-sim ilk but is actually based on a 14th century Chinese novel. The novel is a convergence of fantasy and history that follows several characters who are trying to restore the dwindling Han dynasty. Within the novel emerge three kingdoms referenced in the title, the Chao Wei, Shu Han, and Eastern Wu. The overall story is extremely dense, with over 800,000 words and 120 chapters. No, I've not read it. Koei would go on to merge with Tecmo in 2009 to form Koei Tecmo, and Romance of the Three Kingdoms games are still coming out. Let's see what's up with the first couple entries on the NES. These games are understandably intimidating to approach and are not for everyone, even at a glance. It's a lot of math, it's a lot of maps, and a successful campaign will take several hours. To win, you gotta unite 58 states indicated numerically on the map, and it's not easy. You'll have your choice of 5 scenarios. The details of each are too in-depth to share here, but each one has its own political dynamic and conditions for victory. For example, Scenario 1, an opportunist general seeks control of the palace after a botched assassination, and several states fall into complete chaos. So to win, you must conquer at least 30 states, including specific ones listed in the manual for the scenario. Up to 8 different people can play this, or one player can assume 8 different personas, as I doubt anyone has 7 friends super into this type of game, but maybe you do. I don't know you. To start, you have to select a master, and each scenario has specific masters you are allowed to choose to fit the scenario. Each one has a backstory detailed in the manual, and when selecting a scenario, the manual will show you which ones are able to be selected and which territories they control. Then you select the computer's personality. Do you want it warlike, so that you're attacked constantly, or rational, so that it attacks rarely, but almost certainly wins when it does? It's your call, but warlike surprisingly makes the game easier. After you select your master, you go through a dice roll scenario to select your attributes, which is kind of neat, and if you're not happy with what you get, you can keep rolling. The game is based on turns, and each turn you'll have the option to move or declare war among the list. If you declare war, you have some decisions to make regarding how many men you want to invade with and what you want to take with you. Then you're transported to a different looking and more confusing map where your troops are presented as tiles with symbols and icons and numbers. Those can represent a number of things like naval ability, strength, or food. Your goal in those scenarios are to take out the leader or the castles on screen, and the nitty-gritty of this game can become so involved that if you burn a castle, you need to keep an eye on wind direction to avoid a disaster. It's intense. When not at war, you'll need to develop land and agriculture, sustain an economy among your territories, and take over surrounding zones to complete the victory conditions for the scenario you chose. It requires a lot of your time to learn the ins and outs and effects of your decisions on the game, which make it too daunting for someone like me, but an impressive feat nonetheless. It's a little like the Civilization series, but with many more systems at play. Like for example, here you have to pay your troops for battle, manage your generals, and recruit and train your armies. There is a save function here, and you're going to need it. Just scroll over to quit and select save, but you don't have to quit. It's even a good idea to save before you go into battle, just in case things don't go your way. There's no save slot, so you only have one shot, and with a game this long and tedious, you don't want it ruined from a late night bad decision. The sequel is an improvement over the original in many ways. It kept what micromanagers adored about the first one firmly in place and made quality improvements in the way of graphics and in speeding up the game in places, particularly the battles. There are little animated flourishes added in some places, like on the map you can see yourself move on a horse when you change areas. It's the little things that make a game based entirely on menus a little more pleasing to stare at. One of the more helpful additions is now your advisors will give you insight on how they feel decisions will turn out. So instead of blindly attempting things, as you had to do in the first game, here you get a heads up. And you can create custom characters to head up territories, a nice feature that isn't common for a game of this type, especially at the time. There's also a new reputation system that measures the loyalties of officers to their lords. These additions are few, but do slightly alter the dynamic of interacting with the game enough for it to feel and play different, and for the better. The number of simultaneous players was increased from 8 to 12, so if you have 11 pals who are super into this, you honestly cannot find a more suited experience for you and your posse. The same old gameplay is here though. Keep citizens happy while recruiting, training, and arming your military is a key component alongside maintaining loyalty, keeping other warlords happy and peaceful, and ensuring resources stay plentiful. Some of the game's highest satisfaction comes from recruiting a diamond-in-the-rough general from your province who ultimately turns the tide for you. Recruiting 40,000 men, stabilizing and attacking isolated provinces to gain early momentum is a decent recipe for success, but there are plenty of avenues you can take to survive the rather lengthy campaigns of the Three Kingdoms. The reviews here for these games, or any Koei game I cover eventually, will merely scratch the surface. You've seen what these games look like, you know what they entail, and the source material they're derived from, but the real skinny on these titles are how they behave and react to your decisions. Every time you play will be slightly different, and that's a nod to just how well made these games were for their time. They aren't my cup of tea, but they are rich for people who enjoy micromanagement and war. There are plenty of ports of these, including a Romance of the Three Kingdoms 2 on the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, where it appears to play the exact same, just look a bit better, as you'd expect. Well, that does it for Romance of the Three Kingdoms 1 and 2 on the NES. I once again want to thank YouTuber Crabmaster for allowing me to use his footage from beating these games for this video. He spent a lot more time with these than I ever could. Be sure to check out his channel shown here and linked in the description. And thanks for watching.